everyone, I realized earlier this week that I have forgotten to post the video that goes along with your Section 1.2 Water Flows and Collects assignment called Watershed Reviews. So, in this assignment, or in this video, you are looking at what's a watershed. A watershed is an area of land from which all runoff drains, or sheds to the same river, lake, or other body of water. We kind of looked at this when we did the Investigating Watersheds experiment. Everyone lives in a watershed. You don't need to visit the Grand Canyon to see a watershed. You're already in one. Your own backyard, in fact, is part of a watershed. There is a system of watersheds that kind of fit together like the pieces of a puzzle. Each part is of a larger picture or mosaic. Watersheds are also like Russian nesting dolls. Larger watersheds contain smaller watersheds, which contain even smaller ones. Just as our homes have street addresses, our neighborhood watersheds have environmental addresses. And most of us live here in the mid-Atlantic. So you can see all of the things in the pink would be part of the watershed, the same watershed that identifies where we live. One of the questions on your assignment is to figure out your watershed address. To do that, make sure you follow the directions that are on your assignment. Let's do that now. We are part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. You can see that these brown and orange counties, those are part of New York. The blue counties you see are part of Pennsylvania. We live in Lebanon County, which is right on the edge of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Things to the east of us are not part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. They're part of a different watershed. It also includes Maryland, Virginia, a little bit of West Virginia, and Delaware, and the District of Columbia right here in the middle. So the Chesapeake Bay watershed, I'll zoom out for you, is pretty large, and this is the Chesapeake Bay. So that means everything that falls, every precipitation that falls on this area of land eventually drains into the Chesapeake Bay, and the Chesapeake Bay drains into the Atlantic Ocean right about here. So where does our water come from? All of our fresh water starts as precipitation, which moves continually through the hydrologic cycle. The hydrologic cycle is another term for the water cycle, which we have learned about in many ways. There's another thing called the Surface-Groundwater System. Surface and underground water bodies form an interconnected system. Surface water recharges groundwater storage. So when precipitation falls onto the earth and soaks into the ground, that is surface water becoming groundwater. Groundwater also flows up into surface water bodies. As groundwater collects underneath, especially in areas of low-lying ground where you would find springs or wells, you can have groundwater coming back up to the surface. Most water systems, about 80% in the United States, use a groundwater source for drinking water, but the majority of the population are served by surface water sources. For the most part in Pennsylvania, we use a lot of groundwater. One of the parts of this assignment is to identify where your city or town's drinking water comes from. If you follow the directions on your assignment, you can first visit this website, and I'll show you where my hometown surface water comes from, and then you can follow the directions for where you live. And you are deciding whether it's surface water or groundwater. So first, click the link, and this link is in your assignment, it's not in this PowerPoint. Then scroll to the area to select a more specific region, Pennsylvania. Then you want to click on EnviroFacts data on Pennsylvania. Search for your county name. I am going to search for Erie County because that's where I grew up. And you can leave the population search the same. And you can leave the system status the same. And then click search. After you've clicked search, you will see your results. And all of these little places list places in Erie County. I grew up in Edinboro, with my water source being the Edinboro Water Authority. And what I'm going to record is that my water was groundwater. But you can also see that some places, even near me, in Erie or in other places, were surface water, and some of them were purchased surface water. So that's how you find your water source. Now let's move on to weather and watersheds, talking about rain. The most common cause of pollution in streams, rivers, and oceans consists of 4 things. 1, dumping of garbage by cities. 2, surface water running off of yards, streets, paved lots, and farm fields. 3, trash that gets washed into the ocean from beaches. That's a big one. And 4, waste dumped by factories. These are the major sources of pollution for our water systems. Take a look at all of these sources of pollution. Precipitation runoff from farms, lawns, and paved surfaces is the leading source of water pollution in America today. And as precipitation picks up things that it touches along the way, it picks up all kinds of things. So what's in our water? This graphic shows you all the kinds of different things that could be in our water. You could have fertilizers, herbicides, insecticides. Those are things that kill unwanted things. Herbicides would be killing unwanted plants. Insecticides kill unwanted insects. They're often used by farmers and agriculturalists. Oil, grease, and toxic chemicals from urban areas. Sediment, road salt, bacteria, and nitrogen, or air pollutants, are all sources of pollution in our water systems. I want to take a moment now to talk about flooding. A flood occurs anytime a water body overflows or when an unusual amount of water collects in dry areas. Flash flooding is a particularly dangerous type of flood that occurs within 6 hours or even an hour after the start of rainfall. Flash floods are typically caused by an intense thunderstorm downpours. However, the failure of a dam or a levee can also trigger flash flooding. Urban flooding is a little different. Because urban watersheds contain so many paved surfaces, less water goes into the ground, and more of it heads for the nearest stream or low-lying area, which could happen to be a road surface or a neighborhood. In some places, you get flooding from tropical storms. Sometimes a hurricane's worst punch comes after the storm has passed, with the flooding. This was the case with Hurricane Floyd, which left North Carolina inundated with historic and deadly floods days after the storms. Now let's talk about drought. More often in this area of Pennsylvania, we experience drought than we do flooding. How can drought impact a watershed? Well, first it can reduce soil moisture, which causes stress to the plants of our area. And you know that we live in a highly agricultural area. Lots of people earn their living by farming. It can also cause reduced water levels in lakes, reservoirs, and wetlands. It can cause reduced water flow in streams, rivers, and springs, groundwater depletion, and even water quality problems where the quality of water, even if there's enough of it, isn't safe to drink or use. So let's figure out if our area is experiencing drought. Again, you'll have to look back in the assignment box to find this link, but I'm going to go through and see if we can find if our state is going through any drought. I'm going to choose a different state so that you can look up the state that you're currently in order to decide if that's drought. So I'll look up a neighboring state. I'll look up New York. Once you get to the map, click on your area of the map. I'll click on New York. And you can zoom in a little further by clicking on the state that you're looking for. And this color code here determines whether that particular area is in drought or not. I'll click on a county over here. Okay, it looks like that's as far as we can zoom in for New York. So currently, there are no drought areas in New York. A yellow zone would be something abnormally dry, all the way up to a dark red zone, which would be exceptional drought, meaning there's been a long period of time without water. At the moment, New York looks drought-free. Now to talk about how we can protect watersheds. These are things you can do every day, or simple ways to protect your watershed. First, don't dump or litter. Secondly, water and do your landscaping wisely. Control the flow. That means make sure that you're not overusing your water source. Pick up after Rover. You know who Rover is. Rover is your pet. The more pet waste is found in an area, the more pollution gets into our streams and rivers. Fix any leaks that you have in your home. Participate in cleanup things. I personally live next to a stream, as do many people in Pennsylvania, because there are a lot of streams and rivers in Pennsylvania. And there are many times when I will walk along that stream. There's a trail right next to it. I'll walk along that stream and just clean up the garbage that's found there, because I don't want it getting into the stream and then flowing downstream to other areas. So this is your watershed review. If you have any questions, please make sure you contact me.